Ladies and gentlemen, there's a moment in life when you realize no one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you the life you dream of. That's the moment when you either decide to drift or to take full control of your life. Control doesn't mean perfection. It means responsibility. It means choosing how you respond to life's unpredictability. And today, I want to walk you through 5 powerful truths that will help you reclaim control over your life, no matter where you stand. Every big life change begins with tiny decisions. We all crave transformation. We want to be healthier, wealthier, more fulfilled. But when we imagine what it takes, we think of grand gestures, life-altering events, or massive leaps of faith. The irony is, the most profound changes don't come from a single heroic act. They emerge from the quiet, unnoticed decisions we make each day. It's in these subtle moments, often brushed off as insignificant, where your future is being decided. Think about this when your alarm goes off in the morning and you reach for the snooze button. That's a choice. It seems harmless. Just 10 more minutes, right? But that small decision sets the tone for your entire day. It's a signal you send to yourself, comfort over discipline. Now, magnify that choice over weeks, months, years. You aren't just hitting snooze on a morning, you're hitting snooze on your potential. On the flip side, think of someone who decides to get up with their first alarm. Not because they have to, but because they've chosen to. That person isn't just starting their day early, they're affirming to themselves that their goals, their ambitions, their growth, they all matter. It's never about the action itself, it's about the message it sends to your own mind. We've all heard of people who've achieved incredible things and wondered, how did they do it? James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, is a perfect example. He didn't wake up one day and write a best-selling book. He wasn't struck by lightning inspiration that turned him into a global phenomenon overnight. His success story began with a simple decision: to write for just 2 minutes a day. 2 minutes. That's less time than it takes to scroll through a few posts on social media. Yet, that small choice compounded, slowly and steadily, into a body of work that changed millions of lives. The point is, you don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need a master plan. What you need is to own your choices, especially the small ones, because those choices, those micro decisions, are like seeds. You can't see the tree when you plant the seed. You water it, nurture it, and still, for days or weeks, it seems like nothing's happening. But beneath the surface, roots are taking hold. And one day, seemingly out of nowhere, that seed becomes a towering tree. That's exactly how small daily choices work. They're invisible at first, but they lay the foundation for extraordinary growth. But here's the truth that stings: you are always choosing, even when you think you're not. Choosing to stay in your comfort zone is still a choice. Choosing to avoid a tough conversation is a choice. Choosing to stay busy with distractions instead of focusing on what truly matters is a choice. And every choice you make is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. Let me share a story. A friend of mine was once stuck in a job he hated. Every day, he complained about his boss, the long hours, the lack of recognition. For years, he dreamed of starting his own business, but he kept waiting for the right time. One day, during a casual coffee chat, I asked him, "What's one small thing you can do today to move towards that dream?" He paused, and then said, "I could research what licenses I'd need to start." That night, he spent just 15 minutes looking it up. It didn't change his life overnight, but that tiny act of ownership sparked momentum. A year later, he left that job and launched his own consulting firm. It all began with a choice so small it was almost laughable. But it was his choice. And he owned it. The danger lies not in making bad choices. We all stumble. The real danger is in believing that small choices don't matter. That mindset breeds apathy. It convinces us that one more hour of Netflix won't hurt, that skipping the gym just this once is harmless, that spending a few more minutes mindlessly scrolling is insignificant. But life isn't built in quantum leaps. It's built brick by brick, day by day, choice by choice. Consider this: if a plane takes off from Los Angeles aiming for New York, but the nose is pointed just 3.5 degrees south, the plane will end up in Washington, D.C., instead of New York. A tiny change in direction leads to a completely different destination. Your choices work the same way. A 1% improvement or decline each day may seem trivial, but over time, it defines where you'll land. It's tempting to think that circumstances dictate our outcomes, that we are victims of luck, timing, or external forces. But the truth is, most of what shapes your life is within your control. Your response to situations, your attitude, your willingness to make a different choice, even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. Think about professional athletes. They don't become champions solely because of natural talent. They win because of thousands of unseen choices: to train when tired, to eat right, to study film, to push through discomfort. Those choices, accumulated over time, are what separates good from great. The same principle applies to your life. Whether it's your health, relationships, career, or mindset, mastery is found in owning your choices. It's found in the decision to read a book instead of scrolling, to have a real conversation instead of hiding behind a screen, to spend 10 minutes in silence reflecting, rather than filling every gap with noise. These are the invisible wins that shape the person you become. So the real question isn't, will I ever be successful? The real question is, am I willing to take responsibility for the little choices that determine my success? Because every day, you are either choosing to grow or choosing to stay the same. There is no neutral ground. Life doesn't wait for you to decide when you're ready. It responds to the decisions you are making right now. The path to your best life isn't found in a moment of inspiration. It's found in a series of small, consistent choices that align with who you want to be. Own your choices, even the small ones, because they are quietly, but powerfully, writing the story of your future. We often believe that life operates on some grand schedule where perfect moments are delivered to us with clarity and certainty. But the truth is, life doesn't come with a notification system that alerts you when it's the right time to act. The perfect moment is a myth. It's a comfortable excuse we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of starting. It's a safe place where dreams remain dreams, and ideas stay in the realm of someday. But here's the uncomfortable truth: someday is not a day of the week. Waiting for perfect is the fastest route to never. Perfection is seductive. It whispers promises of guaranteed success if only we wait long enough, plan thoroughly enough, or become good enough. It makes an action feel responsible. We convince ourselves we are being prudent, cautious, strategic. But what we're really doing is hiding. Hiding from the possibility of failure, from the discomfort of the unknown, from the fear of not being enough. But progress doesn't come from hiding. It comes from doing, especially when conditions are far from perfect. I have a friend who dreamed of opening a small cafe. It wasn't a lofty dream of franchise chains or global recognition. It was simple, a cozy space where people could gather, share stories, and feel like they belonged. She sketched ideas, researched business models, saved diligently, but every time she got close to starting, she pulled back. The location wasn't ideal. The budget wasn't large enough. The timing didn't feel right. So she waited. Years passed. She was still waiting. Then, life forced her hand. A sudden layoff from her corporate job left her without a safety net. All the security she had clung to while waiting for perfect was gone. And in that uncomfortable space of uncertainty, she did something she had never done before. She acted. She found a modest little spot. It wasn't the prime location she had envisioned. The decor wasn't exactly as she had dreamed. But she opened her cafe anyway. And today, that little cafe is more than a business. It's a thriving community hub, a place where connections are made and stories are shared. If she had continued waiting for perfect, she would still be waiting. This story is not unique. Every person who has ever built something meaningful has had to face the moment when preparation meets imperfection. The moment when you realize that clarity comes from engagement, not from thought. You can't think your way into confidence. You earn it by doing, by taking small imperfect steps, by learning on the go. The illusion of the perfect moment is a comfortable chain that keeps people stationary. Action is what breaks it. Taking control of your life isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the courage to start even when the answers aren't clear. The people who seem to have it all figured out didn't start because they knew everything. They started because they chose not to let uncertainty paralyze them. They understood that starting messy, starting scared, is still starting. And starting is the most powerful act of reclaiming your life. Think about it. How many opportunities have you let pass? Because you were waiting for things to line up perfectly. How many relationships could have been mended if you had reached out, even when you weren't sure of the right words? How many dreams have stayed locked away because you were waiting for a sign. The reality is, there are no signs. The world doesn't owe you an invitation to your dreams. You create your own opening. One of the greatest misconceptions is that successful people are fearless. They're not. They just choose to act despite the fear. They have learned to live in the discomfort of not knowing and still move forward. Because they understand that growth only happens outside the boundaries of certainty. Waiting for perfect is like standing at the edge of a swimming pool, analyzing the water temperature, the wind conditions, and the ideal entry angle. At some point, you just have to jump in. It's not about recklessness. It's about accepting that conditions will never be ideal. It's about realizing that perfection is a moving target. You hit one goal, and a new standard of perfect emerges. If you wait for perfect, you trap yourself in an endless loop of preparation without execution. You become an expert at planning and a novice at doing, and the world is moved by doers, not planners. Consider the people you admire, the ones who inspire you. Chances are, they didn't start with perfect conditions. They started with an idea, a passion, a stubborn belief that what they had to offer mattered. And they learned as they went. They stumbled, adjusted, and improved. The difference between them and those still waiting is simple: they acted. They didn't wait for the moment to feel right. They made the moment right through action. You have dreams. You have ambitions. They're not waiting for perfect. They're waiting for you. Every day you delay is a day further from becoming who you are meant to be. The discomfort of starting is temporary. The regret of never starting is permanent. When you start in imperfect conditions, something amazing happens. You discover strengths you didn't know you had. You develop resilience, adaptability, and resourcefulness. You build momentum. And momentum is far more valuable than perfection. A moving object can adjust its course, can learn from experience. A stationary object remains in place, collecting dust, gathering excuses. It's time to stop overestimating the power of the perfect moment and start trusting the power of small actions. The first step might be awkward, unpolished, even messy, but it's a step. And that step leads to another and another. Until one day, you look back and realize you've built something meaningful, not because conditions were perfect, but because you decided to act when they weren't. The perfect moment isn't coming. You have to create it. You have to claim it. Life rewards those who are willing to act amidst the noise of imperfection. Stop waiting for silence. Stop waiting for the applause before the performance. Take control of your life by acting now. Start messy. Start scared. But start. Because progress isn't born in perfection. It's born in motion. We often admire stories of people who fought through adversity with sheer willpower. The tales of those who pushed through impossible odds inspire us, because we love to believe that determination alone can move mountains. But here's a hard truth we often ignore. Willpower is not an infinite resource. It depletes. It tires. And when it faces constant resistance from a toxic environment, even the strongest will eventually falter. The harsh reality is that your environment will either be your silent ally or your relentless enemy. Imagine you're trying to eat healthier. You tell yourself, I need more discipline. But every time you open your fridge, it's filled with sugary snacks. Your coworkers invite you for fast food lunches. Your evenings are spent in front of a TV blaring with junk food commercials. In that moment, it's not about how much willpower you have. It's about how long you can endure before your surroundings crush your intentions. It's an unfair fight, and you're going in unarmed. Now, contrast that with the life of an elite athlete. Do you think they rely on daily bursts of motivation to get up at 5 a.m. and train? No. They've built a world around them that makes their desired behavior the path of least resistance. They hire coaches who push them. They design daily routines that eliminate guesswork. Even their kitchen is engineered for success. No junk, just fuel. Their environment is a silent partner, doing half the heavy lifting. The same principle applies to every aspect of life. Take a look at your workspace. Is it cluttered, filled with distractions? Every notification ping, every open tab, every random sticky note you left lying around, they are all tiny landmines exploding your focus. You think you need more discipline, but what you truly need is fewer triggers pulling you away from what matters. Let's talk about people. We underestimate how much influence our social circle has on our mindset. Spend enough time around pessimists, and their doubts seep into you like ink in water. Their words plant seeds of fear and self-doubt in your mind, and you begin to question your own abilities. On the flip side, when you surround yourself with people who talk about ideas, who celebrate progress, who believe in you even when you waver, their energy lifts you. They create an atmosphere where growth becomes inevitable, not optional. You cannot expect to outperform an environment that constantly drags you down. It's like trying to run a marathon with ankle weights and wondering why you're exhausted halfway through. But you can redesign it. And that begins with ruthless awareness. Walk through your day in your mind. Identify the friction points, the moments when you're most vulnerable to slipping into bad habits or toxic patterns. Is it the moment you reach for your phone in the morning and lose an hour to mindless scrolling? Is it when you get home and the couch looks more inviting than your gym shoes? Is it that friend who always calls you to gossip when you're trying to focus on your side hustle? These are not random occurrences. They are environmental triggers quietly orchestrating your failures. Redesigning your environment isn't about massive overhauls. It's about micro adjustments that shift the balance of power back in your favor. You don't need to move to a new city or cut off all your friends tomorrow, but you can start by deleting the apps that rob your focus. You can set your workout clothes next to your bed as a visual cue. You can create small rules, like no phones at the dinner table, or turning off notifications after 8 p.m. Each tiny tweak you make reduces the reliance on willpower. You're not fighting the current anymore. You're changing its direction. Environment shapes behavior in ways we don't consciously realize. A messy desk isn't just a visual nuisance. It's a subtle message that chaos is acceptable. A phone that lights up every 2 minutes isn't just annoying. It's a gateway to constant distraction. And that colleague who always complains isn't just venting. They are normalizing negativity in your mind. Every piece of your environment is sending you a message. The question is, are those messages aligned with the person you want to become? The most successful people don't have superhuman self-control. They are not wired differently from you. They simply refuse to be at the mercy of an environment that works against their goals. They curate their spaces, their relationships, their routines with precision. They understand that discipline is not about constantly resisting temptation. It's about not having to resist it in the first place. Think about the last time you felt truly in flow, when work came effortlessly, when you were fully present, when you ended the day proud of your progress. Chances are, it wasn't because you were forcing yourself to be disciplined. It was because your environment allowed you to be. The distractions were minimal. The people around you were supportive, or at least non-interfering. The task at hand was clear. You didn't need to summon willpower, it simply wasn't being tested. Now, ask yourself, how often do you intentionally design your environment to make that state of flow the norm, rather than the exception? Most people drift through life in default mode, reacting to their surroundings rather than shaping them. But the difference between default and design is the difference between frustration and fulfillment. Every object you see, every sound you hear, every person you engage with, they are all nudging you, gently but persistently, towards certain behaviors. The question is whether those nudges are taking you where you want to go. You have the power to choose your environment. You may not control every element. Maybe you can't change your boss or relocate today, but you control far more than you realize. You control what's on your desk. You control which apps stay on your phone. You control who gets your time and attention after work hours. Every choice you make in shaping your surroundings is a vote for the future version of yourself. Environment design is not a one-time task. It's an ongoing commitment to stay vigilant about what you allow into your space and, by extension, into your mind. It's about creating a world where the person you aspire to be is not fighting an uphill battle, but walking a path that you've cleared for them. You can't outperform a bad environment, but you can out-design it. And once you do, you'll realize that success isn't about willpower. It's about creating conditions where success becomes the default outcome. The moment you take control of your surroundings, you take control of your future. Because the environment you build around you will either fuel your greatness or feed your excuses. Choose wisely. Failure is one of life's most misunderstood teachers. It wears a disguise that scares most people away. But underneath that intimidating mask is a guide that is constantly offering us invaluable feedback. If only we are willing to listen. The greatest shift you can make in taking control of your life begins with how you choose to view failure. For many, failure is a full stop. It's a dead ensign blinking in bright red letters, screaming, "You're not good enough." That's the belief that holds countless dreams hostage. But those who break free from that mindset, those who rise to lead their own lives, understand a powerful truth: failure is never final. It is feedback, plain and simple. Think about the story of Thomas Edison. The man who gave us the electric light bulb didn't stumble upon brilliance in his first try. In fact, he didn't find success after 100 tries. It took him thousands of failed attempts, each one a lesson disguised as defeat. When asked how it felt to fail so many times, Edison replied, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Imagine if Edison had seen those 10,000 failures as a reflection of his worth. Imagine if he had allowed them to erode his confidence and convince him to quit. The light that now illuminates our world would have never been born. Edison's genius wasn't just in his invention, it was in his mindset. He detached failure from his identity and attached it to his process of learning. That mindset is what separates those who live life on their own terms from those who are imprisoned by the fear of making mistakes. We live in a society that celebrates outcomes but rarely honors the messy, painful journey it takes to get there. We idolize success stories, but we often gloss over the failures that shape them. Yet, control over your life doesn't come from avoiding failure. It comes from how you respond to it. Every rejection, every closed door, every stumble is not a verdict on your abilities. It's a data point. It's life's way of whispering, adjust your aim, try a different angle, learn, evolve, adapt. The people who seem to always be in control, the ones who turn obstacles into stepping stones, are not luckier than you. They're not more talented. They've simply trained themselves to interpret failure differently. Let me tell you a story about Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. Today, she's a billionaire, but years ago she was selling fax machines door to door. Rejection was her daily companion. But Sarah's father had taught her from a young age that failure wasn't something to be feared. It was something to be celebrated. At dinner, he would ask, "What did you fail at today?" If she didn't have an answer, he would be disappointed. Why? Because it meant she hadn't stepped out of her comfort zone. That simple practice rewired her perception of failure. It gave her the courage to pursue an idea that many thought was ridiculous. Today, Spanx is a household name, but it wasn't luck that got her there. It was her relationship with failure. You see, failure has a funny way of testing how badly you want something. It asks, are you willing to be embarrassed? Are you willing to be uncomfortable? Are you willing to fall flat on your face and still get up? Most people aren't. They equate failing at something with being a failure as a person. But that's a false identity. You are not your mistakes. You are the person learning from them. When you shift failure from being an identity to being a tool, you strip it of its power to control you. In fact, the most successful individuals don't even use the word failure the way most people do. They call it iterations, experiments, feedback loops. For them, it's not a dead end, it's a detour sign pointing them toward a better path. Elon Musk said it best when he described failure as an essential ingredient to innovation. Without it, we stagnate. Without it, we remain paralyzed in the illusion of safety, never daring to push boundaries. But when you embrace failure as feedback, you give yourself permission to experiment boldly, to create fearlessly, and to pursue mastery relentlessly. This mindset doesn't just apply to inventors and entrepreneurs. It applies to every facet of life. Relationships fail, diets fail, job interviews fail, but none of these failures are life sentences. They are information. When a relationship ends, it's feedback about your communication, your boundaries, or maybe even your values. When a business deal falls through, it's feedback on your negotiation skills or your understanding of the market. When you get passed over for a promotion, it's feedback about where you need to grow. But here's the catch: feedback only works if you're willing to listen. And listening requires humility. It requires the courage to ask yourself, what is this experience trying to teach me? That's not always a comfortable question, because sometimes the answers reveal our blind spots, our weaknesses, and our bad habits. But that's where control is born. You cannot improve what you are unwilling to confront. Owning your failures and using them as stepping stones is how you take back control of your life. The difference between people who succeed and people who stagnate is not intelligence. It's not talent. It's their ability to fail forward. Failing forward means you're using every fall as momentum to propel you closer to your goals. It's understanding that progress is never a straight line. It's a messy, winding path filled with trial and error. But every error carries within it the seed of your next breakthrough. Think of a child learning to walk. They don't quit after falling down a few times. In fact, they don't even consider falling a failure. It's simply part of the process. They get up, wobble, fall again, and get up once more. Because in their mind, walking is inevitable. Somewhere along the line, we lose that resilience. We start believing that failure means we're not cut out for something. But the truth is, failure is just as much a part of adult learning as it is for a toddler taking their first steps. If you want to take control of your life, you have to make peace with failure. You have to stop seeing it as a threat and start seeing it as a mentor. Because every time you fail, you are being refined. You are gathering the tools, the insights, and the strength needed to navigate life's complexities. Control is not given to those who tiptoe through life avoiding mistakes. It's earned by those who fall, reflect, and rise with greater clarity and purpose. The next time you encounter failure, resist the urge to retreat. Instead, lean in. Ask yourself, what's the feedback here? What is this teaching me about myself, about my approach, about my assumptions? That question will shift you from being a passive victim of circumstance to an active architect of your life. Fail forward, and you will build a foundation of control that no external force can shake. That is how control is built. Not through avoiding failure, but by harnessing it. Not through fearing mistakes, but by learning from them. Not through running from discomfort, but by facing it head-on. Because at the end of the day, failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the pathway to it. Every failure you embrace is a brick laid in the fortress of your personal power, and that is a power no one can take from you. Leadership is often misunderstood. People see it as a position, a title, or a role bestowed upon them by others. But real leadership has very little to do with authority, and everything to do with responsibility. First and foremost, the responsibility you take for yourself. Before you can lead a team, a company, or a movement, you must be capable of leading the person you see in the mirror every morning. It's not glamorous. It doesn't make headlines. But it's where true leadership begins. Every promise you make to yourself and every commitment you follow through on becomes a quiet vote of confidence in your own abilities. Those small, almost invisible choices compound over time to create an unshakable trust in yourself. And without that trust, you're building on a foundation that will crack under pressure. You can't inspire others if you constantly betray your own word. You can't ask people to follow you if you don't even follow through on the commitments you make to yourself. I once met a young man who had been through the kind of storm that would crush most spirits. He lost his job, then his home. And with each loss, his confidence took another hit. He felt invisible, drifting in a world that seemed to have forgotten him. But amid that chaos, he found a tiny anchor, something so small it seemed trivial. Each morning, he made his bed. That was it. Nothing more. A single, controllable task in a life that felt completely out of control. At first glance, it might sound insignificant. How does making a bed change anything? But that's the point. It wasn't about the bed. It was about the act of keeping a promise to himself. When everything else felt uncertain, he could create certainty in that one small act. It became his daily reminder that he still had agency, that he could still choose action over helplessness. That small victory led to another. A walk around the block, reading a chapter of a book, sending out a job application. Each one was another promise kept, another step in leading himself back to who he wanted to be. Today, that young man runs a successful coaching business, guiding others who feel lost in their own storms. His leadership didn't begin when clients started calling him coach. It began the moment he decided to lead himself, one small action at a time. Leadership is not about grand gestures or charismatic speeches. It's forged in the quiet moments when no one is watching. It's built in the choices you make, when it's easier to break your word than to keep it. Every time you tell yourself you'll start eating healthier, and you follow through, you lead yourself. Every time you promise yourself you'll wake up early, and you honor that commitment, you lead yourself. It's in those micro decisions that leadership is born, not in the boardrooms but in the morning alarms, the skipped temptations, the quiet moments of self-discipline. The brutal truth is that if you can't lead yourself, You'll always be a prisoner of your circumstances. Life will toss you from one external influence to another, and you'll always feel like you're reacting